A woman needed exactly $50,000 by a specific date. Not approximately 50,000. Not eventually. Exactly $50,000 by March 15, 1934. The deadline wasn't arbitrary. It was the final day to save her family's business from foreclosure. She had no savings, no wealthy relatives, no obvious source for this amount. But she had studied Florence Scovel Shinn's teachings on divine supply and perfect timing. She made one declaration and released it completely. On March 14th, one day before the deadline, she received notification that she had won exactly $50,000 in a settlement she had forgotten about. Not $49,000, not $51,000, exactly $50,000. And it arrived precisely when she needed it. Not a day early, not a day late. This isn't luck. This isn't coincidence. This is divine timing operating through spiritual law. Today, I'm revealing how this law works, why it's more reliable than human effort, and how you can activate it in your own financial situation. Most people think prosperity is about working harder, saving more, or finding better opportunities. But Florence Scovel Shinn taught something radically different. She said that divine supply is always available and always on time. Not sometimes. Not for special people. Always. For everyone. The question isn't whether divine supply exists. The question is whether you're aligned with it. And here's what most people don't understand. Divine timing isn't slow, it's precise. When you align with spiritual law, what you need arrives exactly when you need it, often in ways you never could have planned or predicted. The woman who received $50,000 wasn't more deserving than anyone else. She wasn't more spiritual. She wasn't more faithful. She simply understood one principle that most people miss. And when she applied that principle, the universe responded with mathematical precision. Let me tell you her full story because the details matter. Her name was Margaret, and in early 1934, she was watching her husband's manufacturing business collapse. The Great Depression had devastated their industry. Orders had stopped. Creditors were demanding payment. The bank had issued a final notice. They needed $50,000 by March 15th, or they would lose everything they had built over 15 years. Margaret had exhausted every logical option. She had approached every bank in the city, every potential investor, every family member who might help. Every door closed. By early March, she was out of options. That's when someone gave her Florence Scovel Shinn's book, Your Word is Your Wand. Margaret read it in one night. And one passage changed everything. Scovel Shinn wrote, God is the giver and the gift, therefore I cannot separate the giver from the gift. God is my unfailing supply, and large sums of money come to me quickly under grace in perfect ways. Margaret read that declaration and something shifted in her consciousness. She realized she had been looking to human sources for divine supply. She had been trusting in banks and investors instead of trusting in the infinite source. She had been operating in fear instead of faith. The next morning, Margaret made a decision. She would stop trying to make it happen through human effort. She would align with divine timing and divine supply. She spoke the declaration from the book out loud. God is my unfailing supply, and $50,000 comes to me quickly under grace in perfect ways by March 15th. Notice the specificity. She didn't say, I hope money comes. She didn't say, maybe I'll receive help. She declared supply as an established fact and added the specific amount and timing. Then, and this is crucial, she released it completely. She didn't keep worrying about how it would happen. She didn't keep calling banks and begging investors. She didn't tell anyone about her declaration. She simply went about her days with a quiet knowing that divine supply was on its way. Her husband thought she had lost her mind. How could she be so calm when they were about to lose everything? But Margaret had touched something deeper than logic. She had activated a spiritual law. Days passed. Nothing changed in the physical world. Creditors kept calling. The deadline approached. But Margaret maintained her inner certainty. She would wake up each morning and speak her declaration. Not from desperation, from conviction. On March 12th, 3 days before the deadline, she received a letter from a law firm she didn't recognize. She almost threw it away thinking it was another collection notice. But something made her open it. Inside was notification that a class action lawsuit she had been part of 5 years earlier had finally settled. She had completely forgotten about it. It was such a minor thing, a small claim against a company that sold defective products. She never expected anything from it. But the settlement had gone through, and her portion, after legal fees and distribution, was exactly $50,000. The check would be delivered by courier on March 14th to ensure she received it before the deadline. Margaret stood in her kitchen holding that letter and wept. Not because she was surprised, because she had witnessed spiritual law in action. Florence Scovel Shinn documented dozens of cases like this in her work, and she identified the principle operating behind them. She called it the law of divine supply and divine timing. This law states that infinite intelligence knows your needs before you ask and has already prepared the channels through which your supply will come. But here's the key. Those channels are almost never the ones you're looking at. You think your supply will come from your job. It comes from an unexpected refund. You think it will come from a specific person. It comes from a stranger. You think you know when it should arrive. It arrives at the precise moment you actually need it, which is often different from when you think you need it. Divine timing isn't late. It's exact. And divine supply doesn't come through human manipulation. It comes through spiritual alignment. Margaret received her $50,000 not because she worked for it. She received it because she aligned with the law that was already working on her behalf. Now let me be very clear about something. This isn't about sitting passively and waiting for money to fall from the sky. Margaret still ran her household. She still managed what they had. But she stopped operating from panic and started operating from principle. She stopped trying to force doors open and started allowing the right doors to open. And this is where most people miss it. They say they're trusting divine supply, but they're actually in constant anxiety. They say they're releasing it to God, but they're actually trying to control every detail. True alignment with divine timing means you do what's in front of you to do without attachment to specific outcomes. You take inspired action without desperation. You remain open to unexpected channels without limiting how your good can come. This is what Scovel Shinn meant when she wrote, "Your good is independent of persons or conditions. No one can keep your good from you but yourself." Margaret's $50,000 wasn't dependent on any bank approving her. It wasn't dependent on any investor saying yes. It was already established in divine mind. It only required her alignment to manifest in her experience. Let me share another case that illustrates this principle even more dramatically. In 1937, a man named Robert was facing bankruptcy. He owed $35,000 and had absolutely no way to pay it. His creditors had given him until June 1st to settle, or they would seize his assets and destroy his reputation in the business community. Robert had tried everything. He had sold everything he could sell. He had begged everyone he knew. Nothing worked. Then in late May, with only days remaining, someone told him about Florence Scovel Shinn's teachings on divine supply. Robert was skeptical. He was a practical businessman. This spiritual stuff seemed too abstract, but he was desperate enough to try anything. He read The Game of Life and How to Play It, and one sentence captured his attention. Scovel Shinn wrote, "There is a supply for every demand." Robert decided to test this principle. He wrote down his specific need, $35,000 by June 1st. Then he spoke a declaration. "Infinite Spirit, I accept my divine supply of $35,000. It comes to me now under grace in the perfect way." He repeated this declaration multiple times a day. And he did something even more important. He acted as if his supply was already on the way. He stopped panicking. He stopped complaining. He thanked God in advance for the supply he hadn't yet seen. On May 28th, 3 days before his deadline, Robert received a phone call. It was from a man he had done business with 15 years earlier. They had lost touch completely. This man said he had been thinking about Robert and felt compelled to reach out. During their conversation, Robert mentioned he was going through some financial challenges. The man asked how much he needed. Robert, feeling embarrassed, lowered the number and said $20,000. The man said, "That's not what you really need, is it?" Somehow this man perceived Robert's actual situation. Robert admitted he needed $35,000. The man said, "I'll wire it to you tomorrow. Consider it a loan with no interest and no timeline for repayment. Pay me back when you can." Robert was speechless. The money arrived on May 29th. He settled his debts on May 30th, one day before the deadline. Not a week early, not a month early. Exactly when he needed it. After this experience, Robert became a devoted student of spiritual law. He told Florence Scovel Shinn personally, "I always thought business was about strategy and connections. Now I know it's about consciousness and alignment." Pause with me here. Think back to a time when money showed up unexpectedly right when you needed it. A refund you forgot about. An opportunity out of nowhere. Money from an unexpected source. That wasn't luck. That was divine supply responding to your need. Florence Scovel Shinn called these demonstrations. If you've experienced this even once, comment, "I've received divine supply." Because acknowledging past demonstrations activates your faith for future ones, and your testimony encourages others to recognize their own. Now let's see how to consciously activate this principle. The question everyone asks is, how do you activate divine timing and divine supply consciously? How do you move from random demonstrations to consistent alignment? Florence Scovel Shinn gave very specific instructions. First, you must get clear on your specific need, not vague wishes, specific numbers, specific dates when possible. Why? Because divine mind responds to definite requests. Scovel Shinn wrote, You must be very definite when you ask anything from the universal intelligence. Vague prayers get vague results. Specific declarations get specific demonstrations. Margaret needed exactly $50,000 by March 15th. Robert needed exactly $35,000 by June 1st. They didn't say, "I need some money eventually." They stated precisely what they needed. This isn't being demanding. This is being clear. How can divine intelligence deliver what you want if you don't know what you want? Second, you must speak your declaration as established fact, not as hopeful request. This is crucial. Scovel Shinn taught that your word is your wand. When you say, "I hope money comes," you're declaring uncertainty. When you say, "Money is coming to me now," you're declaring certainty. The universe responds to the vibration of your consciousness, and that vibration is most clearly expressed through your words. Look at how Margaret declared her supply. She didn't say, "Please God, send me $50,000 if you can." She said, "God is my unfailing supply, and $50,000 comes to me quickly under grace in perfect ways by March 15th. She spoke it as something already accomplished in divine mind, simply manifesting in physical form. Robert did the same thing. "I accept my divine supply of $35,000. It comes to me now under grace in the perfect way." Not will come, comes. Present tense, established reality. Third, you must release it completely to divine timing. This is where most people fail. They make their declaration and then immediately start trying to force it to happen through human effort. They manipulate, they scheme, they panic, they contradict their own declaration through their anxious actions. Scovel Shinn taught infinite spirit, "Don't let me miss a trick," meaning stay open and alert for divine guidance. But don't try to write the script for how your demonstration must occur. Divine intelligence has access to infinite channels and possibilities you can't see. Your job is not to figure out how. Your job is to remain in alignment and follow inspired guidance when it comes. Margaret released her need and went about her life peacefully. She didn't keep obsessing over how $50,000 would appear. Robert did the same. He made his declaration and then released the how to divine intelligence. Fourth, you must maintain your consciousness of abundance while waiting for physical manifestation. This is perhaps the most challenging part. When you need money and you don't see it yet, everything in your physical senses tells you to panic. Your bank account says lack. Your bills say lack. Your creditors say lack. But spiritual law operates from the invisible to the visible. Manifestation happens first in consciousness, then in experience. Scovel Shinn wrote, "Faith is expectancy. Act as though I am and I will be." You must see yourself already supplied even before you can see the money. You must think thoughts of abundance even when your circumstances scream scarcity. You must speak words of prosperity even when your account shows zero. This isn't denial of reality. This is creating new reality through consciousness. Margaret maintained her inner certainty even as the deadline approached. Robert thanked God for his supply before it arrived. They were aligning their consciousness with the reality they were calling forth. Let me share one more case that perfectly illustrates divine timing. A woman I'll call Sarah was a single mother raising 3 children. In 2018, she found herself in an impossible situation. Her car died completely. No repair possible. She needed a replacement immediately to get to work and take her kids to school. But she had exactly $300 in her account and no access to credit. A decent used car would cost at least $5,000. Sarah had recently discovered Florence Scovel Shinn's teachings through a friend. She decided to apply the principles she had learned. She wrote down her specific need. A reliable car by the end of the week. She spoke her declaration. "Infinite Spirit, I thank you that the perfect car comes to me now under grace in the perfect way. I am divinely guided to it, and it is divinely guided to me." Then she did something interesting. She acted on inspired guidance. She felt prompted to mention her situation to a coworker she barely knew, not to ask for help, just to share what was happening. This coworker said her elderly mother had just moved to assisted living and needed to sell her car quickly. It was a well-maintained sedan with low mileage. The mother wanted $5,000 for it but was willing to accept payments with no interest because she liked Sarah. Sarah explained she only had $300. The coworker called her mother. The mother said, "Give her the car for $300. I don't need the money and she clearly needs the car." Sarah got a $5,000 car for $300 within 3 days of making her declaration. But here's what she told me when she shared this story. She said the timing was perfect, because if she had gotten the car even 2 days earlier, she wouldn't have met that coworker in the break room and the conversation wouldn't have happened. And if it had taken even 2 days longer, she would have lost her job for missing work. Divine timing meant the car came at the exact moment all the elements aligned, not when she thought she needed it. When she actually needed it for everything to work perfectly. This is what Scovel Shinn meant when she taught that divine timing is always perfect. It accounts for factors and connections you can't see. It orchestrates circumstances you can't control. It delivers your good at the precise moment that serves your highest good. What's happening in these cases? What's the metaphysical principle at work? Florence Scovel Shinn explained it this way. She taught that there is one infinite source of supply, and that source is God, or infinite intelligence, or universal mind, whatever name resonates with you. This source is inexhaustible and always available. You are not competing with anyone for resources. You are not limited by economic conditions. You are not dependent on human channels. You have direct access to infinite supply through your consciousness. But, and this is critical, that supply can only flow to you through the channel of your awareness and acceptance. If your consciousness is filled with beliefs in lack, limitation, and scarcity, you block the flow. If your words constantly declare, "I don't have enough," you are instructing the universe to manifest that reality. But when you align your consciousness with abundance, when you speak words of supply, when you see yourself as divinely provided for, you open the channels through which your good can flow to you. Scovel Shinn wrote in The Game of Life and How to Play It, "Man can only receive what he sees himself receiving. This is the key to everything. You cannot receive what you cannot conceive. You cannot manifest what you cannot imagine. You cannot attract what you do not believe is possible for you." Margaret could receive $50,000 because she saw herself receiving it. Robert could receive $35,000 because he accepted it as already his in divine mind. Sarah could receive a car because she knew divine supply would provide it. They weren't hoping. They were knowing. And there's a massive difference. Hope says maybe. Knowing says it is done. Hope looks to the future. Knowing claims the present. Hope is tentative. Knowing is certain. When you know your supply is already established in divine mind and trust divine timing to deliver it in physical form, you activate the law that brings it into your experience. Now let's address the elephant in the room. What about when you declare your supply and it doesn't come? What about when you make your affirmation and nothing happens? What about when you trust divine timing and the deadline passes without manifestation? This is where most people give up on spiritual law. They try it once, don't see immediate results, and conclude it doesn't work. But here's what Florence Scovel Shinn taught about this. She said there are always reasons why manifestation is delayed or blocked. And those reasons are always in your consciousness, not in God's willingness to supply you. The most common blocks are doubt, unworthiness, and negative word patterns. Let me explain each one. Doubt means you're declaring abundance with your mouth, but believing lack in your heart. You say, "Money comes to me," but you think this probably won't work. Your inner belief cancels your outer declaration. Unworthiness means you don't believe you deserve prosperity. Deep down, you think you're not good enough, not spiritual enough, not worthy enough. This unconscious belief blocks your good even as you consciously ask for it. Negative word patterns means you make your prosperity declaration once a day, but spend the other 23 hours speaking lack. You say, "I am abundantly supplied" in the morning and then say, "I'm so broke" all afternoon. You affirm prosperity and then immediately complain about your bills. Every negative word about money is a counter-declaration that works against your positive affirmations. Scovel Shinn was adamant about this. She said you must be vigilant about your words because your word is your wand. Every word you speak is casting a spell, creating reality, instructing the universe. If you want to activate divine supply, you must eliminate all words of lack from your vocabulary. No more, "I can't afford it." Say, "I choose not to purchase that right now." No more, "I'm broke." Say, "I'm in a temporary financial transition." No more, "Money is tight." Say, "Money flows to me from expected and unexpected sources." This isn't semantic games. This is spiritual law. Your words are literally creating your financial reality. Here's what I want you to understand deeply. Divine timing is not late. It's precise. What you need comes exactly when you need it, which is often different from when you think you need it. Human timing is based on fear and impatience. Divine timing is based on perfect orchestration of all elements. Sometimes what you think you need right now would actually harm you if it came right now. Sometimes the channel through which your good will come isn't ready yet. Sometimes your consciousness isn't prepared to receive and maintain the blessing you're requesting. Divine intelligence sees the whole picture. You only see your immediate situation. Trust the timing even when you don't understand it. Margaret got her $50,000 on March 14th, one day before her deadline. Not a month early, one day early. Why? Because if it had come earlier, something in the divine arrangement wouldn't have been ready. Robert got his $35,000 3 days before his deadline. Not a week early, 3 days early. Because the man who supplied it was being prepared to make that call at exactly the right moment. Divine timing accounts for all the moving pieces you can't see. Florence Scovel Shinn shared a story in her work about a woman who needed $8,000. This woman made her declaration and trusted divine supply. Months passed. Nothing. More months. Still, nothing. The woman kept her faith but started questioning. Then one day, completely unexpectedly, she received not $8,000 but $40,000 through an inheritance from a distant relative she barely knew. When she asked in prayer why it took so long and why it was so much more than she asked for, she received inner guidance that said if the $8,000 had come when she first asked, she would have used it poorly and been in trouble again within a year. The delay was for her protection. The larger amount was for her greater good. She needed to mature in consciousness before she could receive and wisely steward the blessing. This story illustrates a profound truth. Divine timing isn't just about when you get your good. It's about when you're ready to receive it, maintain it, and use it wisely. So how do you actually practice this principle in your life starting today? Let me give you Florence Scovel Shinn's exact formula. First, identify your specific financial need. Write it down precisely. How much? By when, if there's a deadline. Be as specific as possible. Second, craft a declaration that claims this supply as already yours in divine mind. Use Scovel Shinn's exact wording or adapt it to your situation. Infinite Spirit, I accept my divine supply of specific amount. It comes to me now under grace and perfect ways by date if applicable. Or God is my unfailing supply and specific amount manifests in my life now through unexpected and expected channels. Third, speak this declaration multiple times daily. Morning when you wake up, night before sleep, anytime you think about your financial need. Speak it out loud with conviction, not hope, certainty. Fourth, eliminate all contradictory words. Catch yourself every time you start to say something negative about money. Stop mid-sentence and rephrase in alignment with abundance. Fifth, act on inspired guidance. Divine supply doesn't usually drop from the sky. It comes through channels, often unexpected ones. Be alert for promptings. Someone to call, somewhere to go, something to do. These nudges are divine intelligence guiding you to your supply. Sixth, give thanks in advance. Thank God for your supply before you see it. Gratitude is the bridge between asking and receiving. It says you know it's done. Seventh, release it to divine timing. Do your part. Then trust. Don't obsess over when or how. Know that infinite intelligence is arranging all the elements for your perfect demonstration. And eighth, when your supply comes, acknowledge it. Thank God. Tell the story. Let your demonstration strengthen the faith of others. This is how you activate divine supply and align with divine timing, not through human manipulation, through spiritual alignment. If you've made it this far, it's because your soul recognizes truth when it hears it. And I want you to know, this isn't accidental. Divine prosperity exists for people who are ready to align their consciousness with the spiritual laws that govern abundance. People who understand that prosperity isn't just about working harder, it's about thinking differently. This isn't just another finance channel teaching budgets and investments you can find anywhere. This is where we explore the metaphysical principles Florence Scovel Shinn taught that transform financial reality from the inside out. If you're ready to activate divine supply in your life, subscribe to Divine Prosperity and turn on notifications. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we release new teachings on spiritual laws of abundance, the power of the spoken word, and how to dissolve prosperity blocks. Not theory, practical application. Because what you believe creates what you receive, and what you speak manifests in your life. Next video, we're examining Florence Scovel Shinn's most powerful technique for breaking through financial limitations, the one that works even when nothing else has. Your prosperity is divinely ordained. The choice to claim it is yours.